Life sentences and lost innocence inside San Quentin in the 1890s. A prison where boys were given life sentences, and most never came out. What you are about to hear is real, disturbing, and hidden for decades. Stay with me until the end, because once you enter these walls, there is no escape. The bell rang before sunrise. It was loud, sharp, cold. Its sound cut through the stone walls of San Quentin Prison and echoed down the narrow cell blocks like a warning from hell itself. Inside cell 214, a boy not yet 20 years old sat up on his wooden plank bed. His hands were already shaking. He had learned not to ask why the bell rang early. Early bells meant something bad, a punishment, a death, or worse. Across the prison yard, guards were already moving. Boots scraped against stone, keys clanged, a door slammed shut so hard the walls trembled. Then came the sound that every inmate feared most, the dragging footsteps. A man was being taken from his cell, not running, not walking, dragged. His heels scraped across the floor as he begged. His voice echoed for only a moment before it vanished into the cold air. No one could see him, but everyone could hear him. San Quentin had no mercy for men serving life sentences, and in the 1890s, life did not mean hope. It meant forgetting your own name. It meant watching boys enter the prison and turn into old men without ever seeing the outside world again. The boy in cell 214 pressed his back against the wall and whispered a prayer he barely remembered, because he knew something the world outside did not. Once San Quentin decided you were broken, it never let you go. And what happened to the man dragged away that morning would haunt the prison for years to come. But to understand how San Quentin became a place where innocence died, we must go back to the beginning, to a prison built on fear, to a system that believed suffering was justice, and to the young men who entered its gates believing they would someday leave. They were wrong. San Quentin State Prison opened in 1852, standing alone on the edge of San Francisco Bay. By the 1890s, it had grown into California's most feared prison. Thick stone walls surrounded it. Armed guards watched from towers. Escape was almost impossible. Inside, the rules were simple. Obey, work, stay silent. Break any rule, and punishment came fast. Inmates woke before dawn and worked from sunrise to sunset. Some broke rocks, some stitched prison uniforms, others labored in prison factories or construction crews. The work never stopped. If your body failed, you were beaten or locked away. Life sentences were handed out freely in those days. A fight gone wrong, a robbery, sometimes a crime committed as a teenager. Judges believed fear would keep society safe. They did not care what happened after the prison doors closed. Many inmates arrived at San Quentin before they were fully grown. Some were barely older than boys. They entered with hope still alive in their eyes. San Quentin crushed that hope quickly. Cells were small, air was damp, sunlight barely reached inside. At night, rats moved freely between bunks. Disease spread fast. Medical care was rare. If you collapsed from exhaustion, guards assumed you were pretending. Silence was enforced like law. Talking could earn a beating. Looking at a guard the wrong way could earn a week in solitary confinement. Solitary cells were dark boxes, no windows, no sound. Men were locked inside for days, sometimes weeks. Many came out changed. Some came out broken. Some never came out at all. Official records called it discipline. One former prisoner later described San Quentin as a place where time stopped. Days blurred together. Years lost meaning. You forgot holidays. You forgot birthdays. You forgot faces. Worst of all, you forgot who you used to be. Life sentences meant there was nothing to work toward. No release date, no second chance, just endless days of labor and punishment. Young inmates watched older prisoners slowly fall apart. Strong men became weak, loud men became silent. Some stopped speaking entirely. Others tried to fight back.
And that always ended badly. In the early 1890s, prison officials faced growing criticism from the public. Newspapers reported rumors of abuse. Former inmates spoke of beatings and deaths inside the walls. San Quentin responded not with reform, but with tighter control. More guards, harsher punishments, longer hours of labor. The message was clear. This prison would not change. One of the most feared punishments was known simply as the hole, a tiny cell with no light and barely enough room to stand. Bread and water were all you received. Some inmates were kept there until they begged, others until they collapsed. Officially, no one died in the hole. Unofficially, inmates whispered a different story. They spoke of men taken there and never seen again, of bodies removed at night, of names erased from records. Whether all the stories were true did not matter. Fear made them real. By the mid-1890s, San Quentin held thousands of inmates. Among them were murderers, thieves, and men who had made one mistake and paid for it forever. But the prison made no distinction. Once inside, everyone was the same. Everyone suffered. The boy in cell 214 had arrived at 16, convicted of a crime older men pushed him into committing. The judge called him a danger to society and sentenced him to life. 16 years old. The gates closed behind him, and his childhood ended in a single moment. At first, he counted days, then months. Then he stopped counting altogether. He watched friends disappear. Some were transferred, some were punished, some died from sickness or injury, and some, like the man dragged away that morning, simply vanished. That morning, whispers spread through the cell blocks. Guards avoided questions. Inmates spoke only in murmurs. Something had gone wrong. By nightfall, the yard was silent. No work, no movement, just the sound of waves crashing against the shore beyond the prison walls. Then, just before lights out, a scream tore through the darkness. It came from the direction of the punishment wing. It lasted only a few seconds. Then silence returned. The boy in cell 214 sat frozen, heart racing, knowing that whatever had happened was being buried along with the truth. And deep down, he feared something worse, that one day it would be his turn. The bell would ring, the footsteps would come, and no one outside San Quentin would ever know his name. The prison slept that night, but fear stayed wide awake, and the next morning would reveal a secret San Quentin never wanted the world to hear. The secret did not stay hidden for long. By morning, the prison felt different. Guards spoke less, their faces were tight, orders were short and sharp. The usual routine was broken, and every inmate noticed. Work was delayed, the yard stayed closed, breakfast came late and cold. Something had happened during the night. In cell 214, the young inmate sat on his bunk and listened. In prison, listening was how you survived. You learned to read the sound of keys, the tone of boots, the way a guard cleared his throat before trouble began. From 2 cells down, an older inmate whispered through the wall. "They took him to the hole," the voice said. The boy did not answer. He already knew who him was. The man dragged away before sunrise, a lifer, quiet, kept to himself, someone who had worked the stone yard for nearly 20 years. Did he fight back? The boy finally asked. There was a pause. No, the voice replied. That's the worst part. The story spread fast. carried in whispers and glances. The man had collapsed during labor the day before. His hands had shaken, his legs had failed. A guard accused him of faking weakness. When the man tried to speak, he was struck.
When he fell, he was dragged, and when he begged, he was punished. Officially, the man was sent to solitary for refusing to work. Unofficially, inmates believed he had seen something he was not meant to see. San Quentin was full of secrets. Broken men were only one of them. By midday, the truth became impossible to ignore. A cart rolled across the yard, covered with a rough canvas. 2 guards pushed it. No one spoke. The wheels creaked loudly, too loudly, as if the prison itself wanted everyone to notice. The cart stopped near the infirmary. Then it turned and headed toward the back gate. The inmates watched in silence. No prayers, no goodbyes, no names called. Just another body leaving San Quentin without a record. The boy felt his chest tighten. He had seen carts like that before. They always came after nights of screams, always left before questions could be asked. This was how San Quentin erased people. The prison did not kill inmates quickly. It wore them down, starved them of hope, broke them piece by piece until death felt like relief. Life sentences were not just about time, they were about control. Guards controlled everything. When you woke, when you worked, when you ate, when you spoke, even how you stood. Looking weak made you a target. Looking strong made you a threat. Either way, punishment came. By the 1890s, San Quentin was overcrowded. Cells meant for one held 2 or 3 men. Air barely moved. Disease spread fast. Tuberculosis and fever claimed many lives. If you got sick, you worked anyway. If you collapsed, you were beaten. If you died, you were replaced. The public rarely heard about it. Newspapers printed numbers, not names. Officials spoke of discipline and order. But inside the walls, inmates knew the truth. San Quentin fed on youth. Young inmates arrived scared but hopeful. They believed good behavior might earn mercy, that the system would see their effort. It never did. The boy in cell 214 learned this the hard way. One afternoon, a guard accused him of speaking out of turn. The boy tried to explain. The guard did not listen. He was taken to the punishment wing. The door closed behind him with a sound that echoed in his bones. Inside the hole, time stopped. No light, no sound, just darkness and the smell of damp stone. Bread slid through a slot once a day. Water followed. At first, the boy counted seconds, then minutes. Then he lost track completely. His thoughts became loud. His fears grew sharper. He thought of his mother. Her face blurred in his memory. He tried to remember her voice and failed. That terrified him more than the darkness. When he was finally released, he stumbled back into the light, thinner and quieter than before. Something inside him had changed, and San Quentin had noticed. Prison officials believed fear made better prisoners. They believed pain created obedience. If one inmate broke, the rest would fall in line. But fear also created anger.
By the late 1890s, tension inside San Quentin was rising. Lifers had nothing to lose. Younger inmates learned quickly that survival meant choosing sides. Some aligned with guards, others with powerful inmates. Most tried to disappear. None truly succeeded. One evening, during meal distribution, a fight broke out near the kitchen. A guard was shoved, another swung his baton. Trays flew, shouts filled the room. For a brief moment, order vanished. Then gunshots echoed across the yard. The fight ended instantly. 2 inmates lay on the ground. One did not move. The official report called it necessary force. Inmates called it a warning. After that night, punishment became harsher. Work hours increased. Solitary confinement was used more often. Food portions grew smaller. San Quentin tightened its grip. The boy noticed guards watching him more closely. He had become quieter, stronger, older, dangerous. Life sentences turned boys into men who no longer feared death. That scared the prison more than rebellion ever could. One stormy night, thunder rolled over the bay. Rain lashed against the stone walls. Inside the prison, water dripped from ceilings and pooled on the floor. In the punishment wing, a door opened. The boy was dragged inside again. This time, he was not alone. Another inmate was thrown beside him, older, weaker, shaking. The guards left without a word. In the darkness, the older man whispered, "They're covering it up," he said. "Covering what?" the boy asked. "The deaths," the man replied. "Too many bodies, too many questions." The older man had worked near the infirmary. He had seen records altered, names crossed out, causes of death changed. Exhaustion became heart failure. Beatings became accidents. Starvation became illness. San Quentin was not just a prison, it was a machine, and it was breaking people faster than ever before. Before the boy could ask more, the older man began coughing, hard, wet. His breathing grew shallow. The boy called for help. No one came. By morning, the coughing stopped. The guards returned at sunrise. The older man did not move. Once again, a body was removed quietly. Once again, no record was kept. As the boy was dragged back to his cell, he realized the truth. San Quentin did not care who you were or what you had done. If you entered young, you left broken or dead. Life sentences did not steal freedom, they erased existence. That night, the boy stared at the ceiling, knowing something terrible was coming, because secrets could not stay buried forever. And San Quentin was about to face its most dangerous moment yet, one that would expose the prison to the outside world and force the guards to decide how far they were willing to go to keep the truth locked away. The breaking point came without warning. It started with a scream that did not stop. Just after midnight, when San Quentin was supposed to be silent, a scream tore through the prison. Not sharp, not quick. It was long, raw, and full of pain. It echoed across the yard, bounced off the stone walls, and crawled into every cell. Inmates sat up in their bunks. Guards froze. The scream came again, then again. Someone was dying.
Cell doors rattled as men stood and pressed their faces to the bars. No one spoke. Everyone listened. Even the guards looked uneasy. This was not a punishment scream. This was fear. This was a man being pushed past the edge. Then, suddenly, it stopped. The silence that followed was worse. By morning, rumors moved faster than the guards. An inmate had collapsed during night labor in a restricted area. Others said he had been beaten too badly. Some whispered that he tried to escape. Others believed he threatened to tell the truth. No one knew for sure, but everyone knew this: he was dead. The cart appeared again, just like before, covered, quiet, headed for the back gate. The prison tried to move on as if nothing had happened. This time, it failed. Too many inmates had heard the screams. Too many had seen the fear on the guards' faces. Too many bodies had disappeared. San Quentin had pushed too far. By the late 1890s, pressure from the outside world was growing. Former inmates spoke to newspapers. Families demanded answers about missing sons and husbands. Journalists began asking questions prison officials could not easily ignore. The prison denied everything. They said San Quentin was strict but fair. They said discipline saved society. They said deaths were natural. Inside the walls, inmates knew the truth.
Life sentences had turned San Quentin into a slow execution ground. The boy in cell 214 was no longer a boy. Years had passed. His face was harder, his eyes older. He had survived beatings, hunger, isolation, and loss. But survival came at a cost. He no longer dreamed of freedom. He only dreamed of being remembered. One afternoon, something unexpected happened. An inspection was announced. Real inspectors, not prison men, outsiders. The guards panicked. Cells were cleaned. Punishment logs were rewritten. Sick inmates were hidden. The hole was locked and sealed. San Quentin tried to hide its scars, but scars leave marks. During the inspection, an inmate collapsed in the yard. Instead of punishment, he begged the inspectors for help. Guards rushed in, dragging him away. The inspectors noticed. Questions followed. Records did not match stories. Dates did not align. Death count seemed too low for such a crowded prison. San Quentin officials grew nervous. That night, punishment returned with fury. Guards searched cells, confiscated notes, isolated suspected troublemakers. The boy was among them. He was dragged into the punishment wing one last time. Inside the darkness, fear wrapped around him like a second skin. He expected pain. He expected silence. Instead, he heard a voice. "You survived," an older inmate whispered. The voice was weak but calm. "I won't," the man continued, "but you might." The man had entered San Quentin for nearly 30 years. He had entered as a teenager, just like the boy once had, a life sentence for a crime committed in fear and ignorance. "I saw everything, the deaths, the lies, the records they burned." The boy listened. "If you ever leave this place," the man whispered, "tell them what happened here." The boy wanted to speak, but guards were coming. The door opened. The older man was taken. The boy never saw him again. Days later, news spread quietly through the prison. The state was stepping in. Too many complaints, too many inconsistencies, too much attention. San Quentin would not be shut down, but changes were coming. Punishments were reduced, inspections increased, the worst guards were transferred, records were reviewed. For the first time in years, fear shifted, not among inmates, among the guards. But justice came too late for many. Bodies were never counted, names were never restored, families never received answers. The boy eventually left San Quentin, not as a free man, but as someone transferred when reforms reshaped the system. He carried the prison with him in his mind, the bells, the screams, the silence. San Quentin still stands today. Its walls still hold echoes, the echoes of boys who entered believing life sentences meant time. They did not. They meant disappearance. They meant forgotten deaths. They meant innocence lost behind stone walls. And for every name history remembers, there are dozens it never will. Men who lived, men who suffered, men who vanished. This is the truth of San Quentin in the 1890s, a prison that did not just punish crime, it erased people. And the question that remains is simple. How many lives were taken before anyone dared to listen?